What's up, everyone? Welcome back once again to the Football Goons podcast. I'm not going to lie to you guys. This is going to be a tough one to power through based on the way some real life and some fantasy football things shook out for quite a few people in this group over the weekend. Regardless, we are here and ready to keep the train rolling for week 15 and for some more fantasy football playoff talk. Hopefully, you guys are doing well. You've advanced in the playoffs. Maybe you're starting this week. We wish you the best of luck, obviously. We're going to do everything we can to get you prepared for week 15 here. Before we do that, very important topic this week. On Thursday night, I'm going to see Star Wars. So with that in mind, I want to identify who would be the Sith Lord of the NFL, Darth Vader or, just some kind of evil above, and who would be like a Luke Skywalker, using the force of the NFL. So let's identify those players just for fun. I think it's kind of easy with the Sith Lord.
Yeah, the Sith Lord is Bill Belichick. It's got to be.
I think it's
the hoodie.
Goodell. It's Roger Goodell.
No, Bill Belichick wears the hoodie. He looks creepy as it is, and everybody in the galaxy hates him.
that part's true.
That's true. I mean, Deal's got a good point with Goodell, but I'm actually going Jerry Jones. I mean, he's kind of turned himself into like the bad guy in the league right now, based on, some of this stuff with the Goodell extension and threatening to sue the league and things. Like, he's really gone like full dark side at this point. Plus, he has that like super creepy, like old pasty falling apart skin look going. So I think he fits like that Snoke role perfectly, in my opinion.
Is Snoke that old emperor guy?
Just like so old, like hologrammed at this point. He's so old, which is just fitting. So so let's go for the inverse side here while we're joking around about this. Who would be like the flag bearer for the good side?
Nick Foles.
Nick Foles.
And the evil guy is Carson Wentz's left ACL.
We're going there this early, huh?
Yeah, I thought we get more than 2.5 minutes in before that got brought up, but I guess not.
Already happened.
How about Russell Wilson for a little bit of a Skywalker in him? I mean, that dude has to have the force because there's no way someone of his size and stature can do what he does. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it was exactly who I had pegged for that role as well. Like, he's just like that, that good dude. Like, you try to find something to like not like about him, but you just can't. Yeah, he's kind of squeaky clean.
He's just like the best dude in the whole league, and you have to root for him.
All right, well, let's look ahead here to some fantasy football stuff for this week. We're switching the format up here a little bit this week. We're not really going to talk, too much about, waivers and players of the week at this point, because at this point we feel like you should pretty much have a good grasp on what's going on there. So what we are going to do is we're still going to give you Goons and Ghosts and a daily fantasy football value pick. We're just going to have it up as an article for you. So you can just go to footballgoons.com and check that out. It'll be up on Thursday morning. We're not going to spend the time here because we feel like, you guys will enjoy more and we will enjoy more just talking about some general fantasy and NFL stuff here. So let's jump right into it here. If you are a team looking for a quarterback this week in fantasy, I know a lot of people are, considering how many are on IR and how many just terrible matchups there are out there. Which is your preferred option among players owned in less than 25% of leagues? Blake Bortles, Jimmy Garoppolo, or Nick Foles for week 15?
I'd be honestly happy with any of the three. I think for this week, I would not roll Foles out there. The more I'm looking at this, listen, the Giants are terrible, but I want to see how the Eagles deploy this now. I mean, what's Doug Peterson going to do? You have this stable of running backs. It's entirely possible we're going to see upwards of 35 runs, 40 runs by the Eagles this week. number one, it's how you beat the Giants a little bit easier. But number two, let's ease Foles in there. So I like rostering Foles because if things go well this week, they have the Raiders next week for your championship, and that could work out.
Right.
Jimmy is nice, but I'm all over Blake Bortles. I actually put in waiver claims for him in 2 leagues this week. Listen, the Colts aren't anything good on defense, but 2 weeks ago, 309 and 2 touchdowns for him through the air against the Colts. Last week, much tougher test against the Seahawks, 268 and 2 touchdowns. These guys are really starting to come together on offense. The emergence of Dede Westbrook is nothing to sneeze at. When you're looking at Marquise Lee, Dede Westbrook, putting things together, Fournette obviously does something through the air, and they're playing Houston, who's terrible. I really like Jacksonville this week, and I like Blake Bortles as a result.
I can't believe I'm going here as well after the way that things kind of shook out, for the better part of the last calendar year. But Blake Bortles, all of a sudden, like his floor is like 20 points. So, like,
what a year!
Like this is what a time to be alive. You know what I mean? Like he's reverted back to 2 years ago. All of a sudden, maybe it was all of the whispers of like, hey, we think Eli is going to be available next year, or this person, whatever. But all of a sudden, like he's almost a lock for 20 points a week at this point. So I just feel like you've got to go with it.
You can't help but laugh when he says
no, because I mean it's like, you know what? I agree with your assessment. It was like the second they benched Eli, he was like, wait a minute, I was a quarterback for this team and we were god awful every year since I've been here. Now we're good. I'm not losing this job. Like I'm not getting killed every time I drop back. I'm not throwing 5 touchdown passes and losing 41-35. Like I want to be the quarterback of this team, so I better put it together. And he kind of is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Blake. He's the guy I think by a lot right now. Jimmy ain't, he's hasn't lost the NFL, right? And also has 2 weeks where he's 300 or close, and he's going up against Tennessee, who hasn't been great, but Blake is playing well, and it's amazing too. He's playing well with less weapons. Like he had a lot of weapons around him, and I mean he has Leo now, but he's not been quite as good as we expected. Been banged up and stuff, but his weapons got worse and he got better. So
there's no Allen Robinson. I mean that's what 2 years ago when he was a fantasy stud, it was because he just threw it within a garage of Allen Robinson, and that guy went up and got it. So it's funny because he's actually become what we all kind of asked him to be, which was, listen, don't be garbage time guy of 2015, but don't be terrible like last year.
Right.
And that's what he's become.
Yeah, I mean, actually a decent quarterback.
Right. I like these guys in the exact order you said it. I would take Blake. I love Jimmy for the Niners, but my issue with him as a fantasy guy right now, 1 touchdown pass in 2 weeks as a starter. I don't love that. And Nick, I would just wait on. But I think anybody who just lost Carson Wentz could do worse than any of the 3 of these guys. I mean, you're okay there.
Yeah, and also if you're going to keep running, if you plan on keep winning, then he faces Jacksonville next week. So that's not a great matchup too.
Right.
Yeah. I agree. Just to make it 4 for 4, I agree with Bortles. I do think it's interesting that, like, at this point, if you were going to ask me which one I would guarantee a win from this week for his own team, I'd probably go Jimmy, even though it's the Niners. I mean, dude doesn't lose. I mean, that's just what it is. But no, undefeated. So probably the way this season is going, Jimmy Garoppolo will finish this season undefeated, and maybe he might not ever lose again. But yeah, I would go Blake too at this point, which makes me so mad because that means I was just 1 year early on the Blake Bortles train because I was singing his praises from the mountaintops last year, and then this year I swore off him because he ruined every fantasy season I had last year.
You should definitely swear him off again next year.
Yeah, how about I punch you in the face next year?
Hey! Look, I'm just telling you, there's more options out there for me than.
Yeah, I know what your point is. I get it. Contrary to popular belief, I'm not dumb.
Hey, which one of you guys are in the playoffs and which one aren't? And then, like, what's your all-time records against each other?
We're not going here right now.
Oh, okay.
We
I'll
just-
get, I'll get you later.
Do you know what LGS means?
Do you know what next topic means? Because that's what we're doing right now. All right. Jamal Williams and Alex Collins have seized the opportunities that they've been given in their respective backfields. Do you have reservations at this point about starting either player in the fantasy playoffs? And are you feeling maybe more confident in one than the other at this point?
I know what Dean's going to say.
Yes.
I don't have a problem starting either of them. I don't actually feel more confident with one over the other. I think they both are what they are at this point. It does concern me slightly if Aaron Rodgers comes back this week, because I don't think they'll throw him to the wolves, but he's Aaron Rodgers. And if he's on the field, he's going to do Aaron Rodgers, or at least try to do Aaron Rodgers things, which might take away from Jamal a little bit, where there's no such thing as Joe Flacco things except not being very good at quarterback. So, maybe Collins, if Rodgers plays. If Hundley's still in there this week, no problem starting either of these guys.
Yeah, if Hundley's still in there this week, it's a no-brainer that it's Jamal Williams for me. If Rodgers comes back, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. Like, he's not coming back to game manage. He's coming back to throw the ball 45 or 50 times, because that's what the Packers do with Aaron Rodgers. You can't stop the guy. So, and I do think that Williams is still going to be involved in the passing game. He's shown that he can produce in that element, but I don't know that I would trust it as much that the touches will be there for him, because they have over the last several weeks. And I really like Alex Collins. Like, I think he's their starting running back without any question going into next year. He's been pretty versatile for them. They've really established the ability to run the football over the past couple of weeks. And they're realizing that, listen, we have to run first, we have to run second, and maybe even run third, and just let Joe do a little bit here and there if we want to keep winning. So they're committed to the run. I'm not entirely sold on the fact that the Packers are going to stay committed to it if Aaron Rodgers comes back.
You ready for my assessment?
Yeah.
I actually prefer Alex Collins, and I love Jamal Williams, but I don't like his matchups coming up. He plays against Carolina this week. He plays against Minnesota next week, and I think Rodgers is coming back. So even if he doesn't come back this week, if you're planning on starting one for both weeks, it's a weird scenario if you have both and you're deciding between them. But Alex Collins faces Cleveland, who you guys were touting last week, who Jamal Williams dominated, in case you didn't see. And then he faces the Colts, who suck. So it's great for Alex Collins. And they're going to keep giving him the ball because, like the Colts sucking, Flacco sucks more. So they're going to keep giving Alex Collins the ball. So I actually prefer him here.
Interesting thoughts for sure there. Good points on the matchups too. Especially when we're not talking about stud level players here. So I think it's important to consider the matchups here. At this point in the season, I'm kind of the belief that you play your studs at this point.
Of course.
But when you get to this level of a decision, you're talking about maybe one of these guys as a flex, your matchups are so important. So I would just drive that home, because this time of the year, you're going to have everybody telling you ignore matchups, except for this scenario, basically.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to the sore spot here. With Carson Wentz going down last week for the season, put on IR this afternoon, what effect do you see it having on players like Zach Ertz, Alshon Jeffrey, or Jay Ajayi moving forward? Do you see them kind of making an upwards tick, any of them, a downwards tick, maybe staying even?
If you want to just blanket it, I think Alshon goes down, Ertz stays where he is, and then I think not only Ajayi but the other two running backs all go up. Like Miles said, I think we might see this week, especially probably over 30 runs as a team, just to keep it safe and keep it neutral, not to mention the fact that the Giants suck. But the security blanket for any young quarterback, or in this case, a backup quarterback coming into the game, is the tight end. So I think Ertz stays exactly where he is. Now, granted, you do have a situation where the Eagles have the one backup quarterback in the league that I would trust probably more than any other backup in the league at this point. He's got a winning record as a starter. He's got over 10 games started as a backup quarterback, as a quarterback in the NFL, and most backups you don't have that from. So you do have an interesting situation there. But coming in cold at this point in the season, I don't think he's going to be taking a lot of big shots down the field to Alshon. I see him playing more the tight end game, and then, like I said, probably 30-plus rushing attempts as a team. So Ajayi up, Ertz neutral, Alshon down.
I still have Ertz up because Giants, worst team in the league defending the tight end.
Guaranteed
Raiders, 7th worst team in the league defending the tight end. So, yeah, I mean, listen, Eagles Nation devastated. Fantasy Nation, if you owned Wentz, devastated because Foles is not going to be the fantasy MVP. He's not going to be the league MVP. But Rock kind of hit it. He's not an incompetent quarterback. Like, he was terrible with the St. Louis Rams. Obviously. Like, so was everyone until Sean McVay got there and Todd Gurley got there. So, I'm not going to hold that against him too badly. When he was in Philly with weapons, he killed it. And obviously, I don't expect the same performance he had in 2013. But to tell me that he can't complete 6-7 balls to Zach Ertz, against these terrible tight end defenses is ridiculous. It's completely ignorant to say that. So I do believe what I said before with running the ball. I love Ajayi. I love Ertz. Jeffrey, I'm going to keep neutral. I'm going to play him the way he is because it's not like he was a 12-catch guy to begin with. You were hoping he got hit a couple times downfield. Ability to do that with Riley Cooper. I'll take Alshon Jeffrey. So, as far as I'm concerned, fantasy-wise, deploy your Eagles as you have been, with the exception of not necessarily Foles the way you played Wentz. But everybody else on the roster playing the same.
Yeah, I agree for the most part. I actually keep Ertz the same. I think that I don't think he's going to move up, but I think he's going to keep the volume. I think he's going to keep getting the ball forced to him. And then I move Ajayi up because I think they're going to run the ball more often. And I think that now he knows the offense a little more. I think I would have moved him up even if Wentz played. But also, I'm moving Alshon up. I think that, like we say, play your studs. I think they force the ball to your studs. And he's going to be the guy that is at least more open than Aguilar or anybody else there, any other receivers. So I think you can count on him to get a deep target, at least 1 or 2 a game, and then I think he's going to get a couple more catches than he's been averaging.
Yeah, I don't think Alshon really moves. I think they may get him some more targets just because you're going to need somebody that's on the outside that's going to step up. I think Ertz doesn't really move because he's been really good to this point.
Yep.
And Ajayi, I mean, the guy is averaging like 12 yards a carry over the past 2 weeks. Like, they have to look at that and say, he's pretty good. Let's just keep feeding him.
The ball, yeah.
At some point you have to do that. So the bigger thing for me in this whole situation, and this is going to happen now. I'm just going to forewarn you. The biggest thing with this whole entire Eagles situation, and I feel like we do a decent job of trying to keep the homerism out of it where we can. I try to be as balanced as I can. I try to be fair to every team. Everybody knows that I hate the Cowboys. If one more Cowboy fan comes out on social media or somewhere else and says, oh, well, now the Eagles are going to get what was coming to them and what we've experienced all season long with all these injuries and players that we lost, I will punch every Cowboy fan right square in the head. Every single one of them. I'm telling you right now, if I hear it one more time.
What about your wife?
They're not.
I got to know if you're punching your wife.
I mean, no, because she could beat me up. So,
okay.
But all the other ones are getting punched square in the head.
What about your father-in-law?
To be determined. Depends on what he says. All right.
What about your mother-in-law?
Let's move on from this, okay? Here's the point of all this, okay? The Cowboys have not experienced any sort of massive injury or loss, and every single one of them is out there on social media and everywhere else commenting about how devastating it's been to them because they lost Sean Lee for a couple games, because they lost Tyron Smith for a couple games, because Ezekiel Elliott is too much of an idiot to keep his behavior intact. They lost him to a suspension for a couple games. They lost player X for a couple weeks or whatever. I don't want to hear it anymore. No team has experienced as significant of losses as the Philadelphia Eagles have this year. They lost their Hall of Fame left tackle. They lost Darren Sproles, who was as important to that offense as just about any player the past couple years. They've now lost Carson Wentz. They lost an all-pro middle linebacker. I can't hear it anymore. I just cannot. All they have done with all of those losses is be the most dominant team in the NFL to this point and be sitting there waiting basically to see who they're going to play in the playoffs. If your bonehead owner / GM is not smart enough to build a deep enough team and your coach can't coach up the guys that he has, I don't want to hear any more of your, oh, now you're just going to experience what the Cowboys have felt all season long. I just cannot hear it anymore. So be forewarned, because this is the only platform that I have. If I hear any more of that nonsense from Cowboys fans, every single one is getting a punch in the head.
Mother-in-law?
Rant is over. I had to get it in there.
I'm gonna blow up Beth's phone this week and just hope that I can push her buttons enough to get her to say something stupid to South, just to make a liar out of him.
Just so everybody knows, if South comes in next week with black eyes and broken nose, it was possible spousal abuse.
All right, let's move on before I punch a hole through this computer. Which struggling quarterback would you more likely trust if you had to play one of these guys right now? And I'm
not Derek Carr.
I'm pretty sure this is a situation for a lot of people out there. Derek Carr or Marcus Mariota?
Don't send Derek.
Don't send Derek. I so badly, and I'll admit this, and it just because of the way it worked out. Thank the good Lord in heaven that it didn't work out for this way. I planned on this being my quarterback duo.
Yeah,
for
this was
everything.
your target.
This was my target. And honestly, it didn't happen for me in any league that I'm in, and that couldn't have worked out better for me. I'm glad I missed that. At this point, I would probably say Derek Carr. He actually has 2 more 20-point games this season than Marcus Mariota does. I guess somewhat slightly more consistent. He throws more interceptions than Mariota does, but he also gives you the potential to throw touchdowns. And at this point, I feel like the Titans just know that running the ball is – I said it 5 weeks ago, and it's still true. The Titans know that running the ball is their bread and butter and what's going to get them wins and into the playoffs at this point. What?
That doesn't work either. They're terrible.
Well, they're a playoff team at this point, so I don't know. I know it's the AFC. I know it's whatever, but they're – the Raiders at least have big play potential because the weapons are there on the outside. And, every once in a while, Derek Carr can do something right, it seems, this year. But, I hope these aren't your only 2 options.
These guys are just exhibit A and B of, my whole argument this summer when we were talking about fantasy things. And trust me, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back of this season about fantasy predictions, because this is the worst fantasy season I've had in a long time. But I'm not on the wait for a quarterback train ever, because these are the types of players you end up with. One good season, and you're praying they can repeat it. I don't like being in that boat. Now, if it's a 2-quarterback league and one of my guys is there, okay. But I'm telling you right now, I have Rodgers or Wilson or Brady or somebody like that to hold the fort down while the other guy figures it out. It's just scary to be alive, because I guarantee there's a lot of people still alive that this is their quarterback situation, because you probably have good situations elsewhere. But that's scary to be in a semifinal and God, can Oakland score on Dallas? I don't know. You know what I mean? Can he get the job done? That's scary. I think you need to lock yourself into at least somewhat of a sure thing at quarterback, because this is what you run into. It's the story all the time. We just talked about Blake Bortles. He was a bottom end of the top 10 pre-rank last year, and he killed people last year. You can't go off of one good season and hope the guy repeats. You just can't do it.
Yeah, no, this is not a great situation. I think in this instance, I kind of have to go Derek Carr because he feels like he's going to at least get you a score. You know, with Tennessee, the way they're playing right now, it's just been brutal. So I don't know. I feel like Carr's more likely to get you a garbage score like he did last week. So I think I would lean that direction. And the pass volume is there with them. So for whatever reason, like they still don't really want to run the ball. So I think I'd go with Carr. All right, last question in this particular area. Would you immediately play Aaron Rodgers this week if he's activated?
I am not, and that's 2 leagues I do have him, one of which I'm still eligible to win the championship. I won't be playing him this week. If he survives the game, then I'll absolutely play him next week. I'm just nervous to be the guy in a semifinal that starts Aaron Rodgers and 5 minutes in, he gets landed on and we all find out it was too early to come back from his collarbone. You know what I mean? So if you're in a semifinal right now, you probably have been riding at least someone there. Real situation is, what if you're that Derek Carr owner and you have Aaron Rodgers? What are you doing? I know I just banged on him. I'm still going Carr this week. I think the only way I'm playing Rodgers this week is if, like, I was rolling with Wentz or Josh McCown, and now it's Rodgers or Eli Manning. You know what I mean? Like, I'd rather take the chance. But if you've been rolling with somebody, keep them out there.
Yeah, I agree.
I disagree.
It's just too soon.
Yeah, I actually go ahead, South. I'll get him.
I'm going to disagree just because of what I said a little bit earlier. I think that if Rodgers is going to come back and play, it's only going to be because he can be Aaron Rodgers. The Packers have a history of really being conservative with a lot of this stuff. So they're not the kind of organization that is going to take a look at these pictures and test him out. And he's going to say like, oh, I'm like 75 or 80%. Like, they've got a whole lot more that they have to worry about moving forward with their franchise quarterback, than this one game. So to me, if they're going to play him, it's because he's all in, ready to go. So to me, I would go ahead and play him because he's Aaron Rodgers. And this is coming from a guy who, in a league where I just picked him up over the last couple of weeks, I've been playing the better matchup of Cousins and Stafford all season long. And I think automatically I would just jump both of them and I would play Rodgers. So that's just my opinion.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking, that your situation probably isn't like you have a gem out there if you had Rodgers. So, yeah, depending on who you're starting, like if you happen somebody dropped a Rivers or somebody like that, maybe keep starting them. But if it is a situation where it's a Stafford or a Cousins or a Mariota or Carr, one of those guys, yeah, I'm starting Rodgers. I'm starting him. Anytime he's on the field, he's on my roster. He's on my starting lineup.
All right, so one more quick question here we just got coming in from YouTube. If you're watching live on YouTube, you could feel free to send across some questions, and we will try to get to them as we can during the show here. Peter Rendazzo asks, Goff or Keenum this week?
Oh,
interesting question there.
I hate it for him. I don't know. Like, listen, maybe I would say Goff because the Seahawks are not the Seahawks that we've known for years. But something about the way that game ended last week in Seattle against Jacksonville just tells me that, like, they're one of those defenses. Like I said this about the Eagles last week. They're just one of those defenses that I don't want to play them if they're pissed off. Like, and I feel like they're going to be hungry this week. They're not young, so we can't call them youngry. So, like, I think Goff potentially has the better matchup, but I don't want to play that team right now. So I think I might actually lean towards going Keenum.
It's easily Keenum for me. I think Goff had a good game against Seattle earlier this year. He had 288, no scores and 2 interceptions. Granted, it was with the full roster they had, However, he's going to Seattle right now, and I don't like that situation for him. And Keenum has, I know he's Case Keenum, but he's been great for the last, well, really since he's been playing. But the last 4 weeks, he's had 280 and 1, 282 and 2, 227 and 2, 280 and 2. Like he's just playing great football, no matter who he's playing. So Cincinnati doesn't really scare me. I think that he's going to have another great game.
I actually agree. I think it's Keenum, but just by a little bit. It's really just the playing in Seattle factor, and I think that you kind of saw like embarrassingly at home. There were times where the Rams had trouble with the crowd noise from all the Eagles fans that were there.
Yeah.
So I
Let
mean,
alone in Seattle.
how is that going to translate in Seattle with a playoff spot on the line? You know, they're desperate now. They got embarrassed last week, so. I don't know. I still like Goff, but I just think the Bengals are a total train wreck. I really do. And I think that at this point, the Bengals are going to be everyone's doormat. Marvin Lewis is done. Everybody knows it there. You know, everybody's kind of auditioning at this point. So I think I would go with Keenum this week.
I'll roll solo and go Goff. I think it's Goff. He's got 3 straight games of double-digit touchdowns, and it was against the Saints, Cardinals, and Eagles, which is in the league as well. I just like I like his game more. I like his weapons more. I'm scared that Keenum's going to start playing for his job here. Personally, you can read that on the power rankings. So, like the opposite of the Carr Mariota thing, I think you're good either way. But I would roll Goff because my question is going to be which offense do I trust to put up 40 more? It's absolutely the Rams. So, I think we're about to watch a complete changing of the AFC West guard. They're going to beat up the Seahawks pretty bad this week.
Keenum also has has at least 2 touchdowns in the last 3.
I hear you. I'm not anything against Keenum here. I think that makes sense to me. That's fine. I just really like Goff.
I hear you.
All right, guys, let's take a second here and talk about our friends at Gorb. Listen, it's the holiday season. You're probably looking for somebody that's tough to shop for, to be quite honest with you. I know we've all got somebody that, you know, is tough to shop for or whatever, but everybody likes fashionable attire. You know, even me, like I kind of dress like a slob from time to time, but I still like to look good most of the time. I still like to feel good most of the time. And that's the great thing about Gorb is that they've got all kinds of attire, from shirts to hoodies, accessories. I've seen, you know, all kinds of, you know, workout gear. If you're looking for somebody, you know, who likes to do all that working out stuff, and that's clearly not me, but if you know somebody that is that person, Gorb has something for all of those hard to shop for people. You can check them out at GHORBH.com. They've got all kinds of styles, all kinds of colors, designs, everything. And you're going to get that constant reminder when you wear the gear and feel good and look good that in life, you've really only got 2 choices. You could either get hungry or you could be hungry. The choice is up to you. Check them out at GHORBH.com today. All right, guys, let's go through a little bit more of a no-huddle approach here. I know we always say that every week, but we end up kind of lingering on some stuff because we have fun talking about it. But the objective of this segment is to kind of go through some rapid-fire points here. With the way the AFC appears right now, is there any team that you would definitively say Jacksonville cannot beat?
I don't think there's a way to say there's no chance they'll ever win, but I still think that almost every time the Patriots are going to beat them, especially if they have to go to Foxborough. I hate that for the Jags, and I think that they get beat by really decidingly. But I think that with the game plan of Belichick and the Patriots, and just the youngness and how young they are and inexperience really still. And although we kind of touted for Blake Bortles, I think he falls apart if they play in Foxborough. So yeah, I think the Patriots still beat them.
I think the Steelers kill them. I actually think it bodes to Jacksonville that they already went into Pittsburgh and won by 21 points. Like, that was a different Steelers team, and now you woke them up, and they realize they have to kind of take you pretty seriously. Pittsburgh will absolutely destroy Jacksonville should they play in the playoffs.
So let me just get this straight. And I'm not advocating, but I want to know. You're saying that because the question is there any team that you would say would definitely beat Jacksonville?
No, I shook my head at the wording. Of course not. I mean,
Okay.
Beyond the any given Sunday, anybody beats anybody. That's not even.
Well, no, any given Sunday, any team in the NFL could win except for the Browns. But
clearly, Jacksonville's a really good team. I actually think they would go even to Foxborough and win. But for me, Pittsburgh, it would have to be one of those they play 10 times, Jacksonville's going to win one of them thing. I mean, maybe I'm just overrating Pittsburgh a little bit, but Pittsburgh scares me more than anybody right now.
Pittsburgh is my number one team right now in the NFL. I think with the injury to Wentz, I think they jump to the top of the list. They're winning close games. They're winning blowouts. They can pretty much win. However, that Jacksonville game had set them on fire. But let's just say, for argument's sake, Jacksonville wins out, and the Steelers lose 2. And that game is in Jacksonville. Then do you take the Steelers still? Just to play devil's advocate?
Yeah. Why am I scared of going to Jacksonville? I know it's on the road, and you always kind of favor the home team.
Because Ben Roethlisberger is then on the road.
Yeah, that works in Foxborough and Baltimore and places where fans care. The tarp over a third of the stadium.
So you're saying that the FanDuel Miller Lite pool is not an intimidating fan zone?
No, it's not.
Yeah, see, this is an interesting one for me, and I worded it this way on purpose because I think that Jacksonville is a toss-up right now with any AFC playoff team. And the only reason why I consider them a toss-up is their offense consistent enough to score with a Pittsburgh team, with the Patriots if they got hot? Because I'm going to tell you what's going to win in the playoffs in a short season is getting after the quarterback. And Jacksonville does it by the dozens, literally. They've changed their Twitter handle to Saxonville, and rightfully so. We joked around about it early on because it was 3 games in and they had a lot of sacks. They've not slowed down. They get after the quarterback ridiculously. Their secondary is really good. So overall, their defense could shut down just about anybody. But when it comes time to needing a score, I'm still a little iffy about them. So I think basically, I'm not an odds maker and I don't typically pay attention to odds, but just for the sake of this argument, I feel like it would be a pick 'em with just about any team in the AFC right now. I know that might sound crazy, but I think if you really sit back and look at that defense, you'd have to kind of agree. And Rocco, what I kind of hear you saying is Steelers against the world.
I'm leaving. I hate everybody.
Steelers against the world.
All right, let's look forward a little bit here. DeAndre Hopkins continues to show that it literally does not matter who is playing quarterback for the Texans. Can you make a case that he's the number 1 pre-ranked wide receiver heading into 2018?
I'm going to put a little tiny asterisk next to that. It doesn't matter who his quarterback is unless it's Brock Osweiler.
Well, I think
he was awful last year.
I think we all know that's done.
That's done.
No.
So
Is Antonio Brown still playing?
Did somebody shoot Antonio Brown?
Did he die?
Yeah, you jumped the gun. I was just saying, I just wanted to put a star next to the point that it does matter if that quarterback is Brock. But no, Antonio Brown is the number 1 wide receiver in the NFL until Antonio Brown's not playing anymore.
I don't think there's any conversation with the top 2 next year, though. If they're not your top 2, that's an issue for me. Hopkins is ridiculous still now with Tom Savage and TJ Yates throwing the ball. Deshaun Watson's coming back, and they were pretty decent together.
Yep.
But what Antonio Brown is doing and continues to do, he's always open. And they're, Julio Jones gets taken out of games. You don't take Antonio Brown out of games.
Not an
You
option.
telling me Baltimore, that wasn't their number one thing, and he had 200 yards. He's out of control.
I think the thing that gets overlooked with him is his route running ability. Like, he's a small guy, but he's fast, so you just assume that he's like a burner. But he runs himself open with the way he runs his routes. Like, there's no way he should be as open as he is, and yet he is.
He's a quick twitch kind of player. Like, you can't move fast enough to make up the ground. So, this is kind of a question that stemmed off of, a lot of stuff that I've been reading over the past couple of weeks about how, Antonio Brown, even though he's still like the dominant wide receiver right now, people started to see Juju kind of taking more of a role in that passing offense toward the middle of the season. And you're really seeing Bell just continue to be dominant. We don't really know what's going to happen with Ben. Is it unrealistic to think if the Steelers make a Super Bowl run and win it, that Ben walks away? Then is he as effective? I mean, maybe not. I think he's still incredibly special, but that's all to kind of be determined. So I guess that kind of opens the door. Like, if some of that stuff kind of shook out, but I still don't see a way. He's still 25 points ahead of DeAndre Hopkins for as good as Hopkins has been. Hopkins has 11 touchdowns this year, and Antonio Brown is 25 fantasy points ahead of DeAndre Hopkins. He's 11 catches ahead of him. It feels like DeAndre Hopkins leads the world in targets, but Brown still has 4 more targets even. So, like, you watch a Texans game, it feels like every pass they force it to Hopkins, but somehow still Brown has way more targets. So, crazy. I don't know. To me, unless Roethlisberger, decides to walk away, I'm not even considering it. And even then, it's still going to be tough. All right, we may see the most worst to first finishes in NFL history this year. We've already got the Eagles going from worst to first. Which current last place team would you view as a potential division winner next year?
So I heard a really interesting stat that 14 of the last 15 years, there's been at least one worst to first. That's crazy. And you would say, well, the way the turnover is and the parity is in the NFL, that's going to happen. I don't even want to pick one of these bottom 8 for next year, because I don't think any of them have a single chance. Like, I just can't see it. Like, you got the Jets and the Browns. Neither of them are doing it. Sorry, not happening. I don't think the Colts can do it, because I don't think that they can jump the Jaguars or the Titans, and we expect Houston to be back next year as well, because Deshaun makes a difference. The Broncos aren't jumping the other 3 unless by miraculous. Maybe the Broncos would be my pick, just if they can shore up their quarterback position, but I don't think they're better than any of the other 3 right now by even some. It's not the Giants. It's not the Bears. I think the Bucs are a good team, but I don't think they have the wherewithal to jump all 3 that are all clearly better than them right now. And then the 49ers.
I'm gonna fish a little for this, because Miles had a little bit of a reaction when you said that. So
yeah.
Listen. Obviously, I'm not going to go as far next year as to probably go out and predict it. Although I may, pending how this probably amazing offseason is going to go. The 49ers have a great shot of winning the NFC West. A great shot. I understand LA is awesome. I understand Seattle is great. Maybe fading a little bit. But you're talking about a Niners team that has the quarterback position likely figured out. You know what I mean? Listen, is he Tom Brady? Probably not, but he's certainly not the dreck they've been dragging out there. They have a top 5 pick, more than likely, that they don't have to use on a quarterback. So you can either grab a guy like Saquon Barkley, you can grab, or you can trade that for a haul from somebody else. And they have the most cap money in the league. And they have a coach everybody's going to want to play for. So if you're a free agent and 3 or 4 teams can back up the money truck to your driveway, why would you not want to play for Kyle Shanahan, especially if you're an offensive player? So for me, listen, if I'm Jarvis Landry, I'm a 49er. And now you've got Jimmy Garoppolo throwing it, Jarvis Landry. Marquise Goodwin is great at stretching the field. Tight ends, I think they draft Saquon Barkley. You fill in defense with free agents. All of a sudden, win the NFC West.
I think I'd just to go along with what you're saying. I think I'd rather have Saquon. But what if they have enough money to throw at Lev?
Fine. I mean, you know what I mean? They definitely do. I don't think Pittsburgh lets him walk, but yeah, I mean, it's the options that the Niners have, and on top of that, you don't have to worry about quarterback. You're bringing back Jimmy Garoppolo. He's your quarterback, and you have a great coach already in place. I really think the Niners could do it.
Yeah, I thought I was going to be crazy when I said that I think the Niners could do it, but I agree with you. I think everything that you said, plus the fact that, you know, Rocco, you hit the nail on the head initially. Like, the law of averages says it's going to happen that a team is going to do it. So you have to pick the team who is best set up to make a jump to do that next year, you know, and then figure in some of the stuff around them. The Cardinals, they could be a total train wreck next year. Carson Palmer might walk away. You know, Larry Fitzgerald is another year older. I still think Bruce Arians is going to walk away. Yep. I mean, that was kind of been my prediction for a little bit too. So, like, Seattle is fading, whether we want to admit that or not. Like, they have a lot of holes that they're going to need to fill. So it comes down to, can you get good enough to compete with the Rams and go from worst to first? And I'm bought in. I agree. I think that it could be the 49ers, no doubt.
I'm biased. I'll hold mine.
Well,
yours is my second guess, though.
Yeah.
Yours is my second one.
Because you still have Luck coming back. So, like.
And now, I think any team that's terrible and has that super high draft pick that you can do a lot with, because you definitely don't have to pick the quarterback.
Right.
Like, is going to be great. Someone's going to take him top 5, and he might be the worst quarterback ever to pick up football. Like, you never know. You know who is good? Andrew Luck.
Right.
I'm pretty sure he's good. So, you know, the Colts are in that kind of that same boat. The reason I take the Niners over the Colts is I absolutely like Jacksonville and Houston more than any of the teams in the NFC West.
Yep. All right. With Wentz going down and nobody else really flashing this past weekend at quarterback, what % chance do you give Antonio Brown as a wide receiver to win the MVP award?
If you would have asked me before this week, I would have said like probably 5%, if that.
Right.
But Wentz goes down. Tom has a loss and a very, very, very terrible looking game.
Thanks,
and you
Tom.
know what? I know, Miles, I'm sorry. And you know what? As good as Russell has been, and I still think he should be the MVP more than likely, I feel like the voters shy away from guys who have 5-6 losses unless they are setting phenomenal records. Like, you know, if you have 5 losses, then you better run for 2,000 yards. You know what I mean? Like, or throw for 5,000 yards. Or, you know what I mean? Like, break the touchdown record. Like, you can't have 6 losses, 5-6 losses, and be the MVP as a quarterback with just a good season. You know what I mean? So after last week, I would now bump Antonio Brown, not to the favorite to win it, but I would almost make it like a 33-33-33, you know, him, Brady, and Russell Wilson. And if we get another week like the one he just had, another 200-yard performance in a win, he'll probably jump into, you know, the favorite for me.
Yeah, it's a weird year with that race because even, you know, you say with Wentz going down, he didn't have it locked up. You know what I mean?
So no, but it was a 3-way deal between the 3 of them.
And it's a what have you done for me lately award sometimes.
Right.
4 touchdowns.
So I mean, I Wentz likely would have won it, and I actually think he's still 4th in the running for me. I don't think Brady's got a shot at it personally. I'm going Brown, 50-50 Wilson Brown, and it depends how much. Like when I say the Brady thing, my issue with the MVP has always been they ignore the word valuable, and it's just who's the best player, and this isn't the Heisman.
Right.
The Seahawks are 4-12 without Russell Wilson. Patriots are probably bad without Tom. I think the Steelers are still just fine without Brown. They're not 11-2, but you still have Lev Bell. So that's why it's Wilson for me. But as far as what this guy's doing and how great he's playing, I think it's a 50-50 thing for me.
I agree. It's 50-50, and it's going to depend on, does Wilson step it up in these next couple of weeks and get the Seahawks into the playoffs? And I say step it up, like, I mean, he's been carrying them like 10 pianos on his back, basically. But like, you know, does he finish strong? Because I think this is going to be like a who flashes the most down the stretch here. That's what it's going to come down to, because I think it's that close. So I do think it's going to be between Brown and Wilson. I think that it's going to kind of work against Brady, that they've had some ugly games, you know, over the past couple of weeks, and might get into another ugly one this weekend. So I think it's a 50-50 shot.
I actually think it could be almost decided this weekend, because Russ has a shot to win the NFC West against the Rams, and Brady and Brown go up against each other. Somebody's going to win that game, and something tells me that Brady or Brown is going to be the main cog in who wins that game. So
right,
this weekend's huge.
I think it's Tom Brady, and I think it does depend on this weekend, but I also think regardless of what happens this weekend, I think Tom Brady gets 1,000 yards in the next 3 weeks. That's my bold prediction, and he finishes out the year strong. And quarterback has won it 9 out of the last 10 years. A receiver hasn't won it since God knows who when. So
Ever.
Yeah. So I don't think it's going to change this year that it's going to go to a receiver. So and if it's Tom Brady versus Russell Wilson, which I think it is, I just don't know how you go against Tom Brady when all of his statistics are better.
All right, we will see, obviously, over the next couple of weeks here. If you were pre-ranking for 2018 right now, where does Josh Gordon fall among your wide receivers?
I'm going to keep an eye on what happens at quarterback there, obviously. If they take Josh Rosen number 1, like I think they should, even if he doesn't win the starting job and Deshaun Kaiser starts the season, just knowing that should Kaiser continue to turn the ball over and get benched, that Rosen is the other option, not Cody Kessler or Brock Osweiler or whoever else they're trying out there. He'll probably be at that very back end of the top 10, 9th or 10th for me. Again, just because of the quarterback thing. If you're talking talent, he's easily top 5.
If you're talking talent, he's top 4.
Okay. Boy, I was way off with the top 5 there.
Yeah.
I mean, without actually making the list, I want to see what happens, but I'll throw out like 8th for me.
I was going to say 8, 9, 10 area, just based on who the quarterback is. And I mean, obviously, I'm not ready to throw Julio Jones out yet. I think there's 8 guys that I trust their situation more. I'll say that. Not that they're more talented than Josh Gordon, but that,
Honestly, I think we already talked about this guy. Just look at where you personally pre-ranked DeAndre Hopkins. Why is it not the exact same spot? Like, dominant wide receiver that catches everything thrown his way with a horrible quarterback situation. Like, he's going to be a target monster. You know what I mean? So we're talking about a guy that's probably going to get close to 200 targets next year. So even bad quarterback play, that still ends up being a pretty solid season.
Yeah, Deal, where are you going to have Gordon at?
He's in my top 10. I would say probably around 8 or 9. The guys that I had ahead of him this year, that were in my top 10. I still have AB, as OBJ, Julio. We'll see about Mike Evans, AJ. Yeah, Nuck. And then he and TY are, we're assuming luck plays, he and TY will probably be fighting for the next spot for me.
I have a fun question that I really want to ask.
Yes, I will rank him ahead of Robbie Anderson.
No, not that. We usually give a lot of love to this guy, and he is having a fantastic season in which he's playing and he's healthy. Who is pre-ranked higher for you next year? Gordon or Keenan Allen?
Keenan Allen.
I'm saying Gordon because
Yeah,
I'll
think I
I'll
agree.
take a guy that smokes over a guy that's injured. So
Right. I think for me, Deal mentioned T.Y. Hilton, who is definitely a guy people are going to sleep on next year because
I can't wait.
it's a recency bias stupidity thing. Andrew Luck's going to play, and T.Y. Hilton's going to be awesome. But probably the three of them are really just right there for me. I would throw Keenan in that same group with Gordon and Hilton like Deal did. When push came to shove, I'll probably draft Keenan Allen because it's what I do. Like, it's just sort of what I do. So, but it'll be tough because I love Josh Gordon too. So I don't know.
It's going to be Keenan Allen just because I trust his situation more. And like Phillip Rivers is still his quarterback. So he's still going to excessively target him, and rightfully so. So like, even though, I love Josh Gordon, he's still going to be kind of like a 10 or 11 for me, which is where like DeAndre Hopkins was this year, based on the fact that like he's a fringe first rounder because the talent is elite, but you have no idea what you're getting out of the quarterback position. So until we kind of get a clearer picture on that, if I have to pre-rank it right now, I think he's like 10 or 11 for me, which, isn't crazy because I'm still saying he's basically a first rounder. But if you're throwing that Keenan Allen thing in there, I'm going with him because the targets are just insane. All right, last question here that we're going to hit on. We kind of had this one on the docket last week heading into the Heisman Trophy award ceremony. But now that we know that Baker Mayfield won the Heisman Trophy out of Oklahoma, can he succeed in the NFL? And do you see a decent fit for him somewhere in the league when he comes in next year?
I'm not going to go ahead, Deal.
I was an advocate, and even before he won the Heisman, I was saying that I thought he was going to be really good in the NFL still. Do I think he's going to be one of the top 5 quarterbacks? Probably not, but I do think that the Giants is a really good place for him. I think that they have OBJ, which is a good situation, and they're going to be probably bad for a little bit yet. So I think they can put some more pieces together. Their defense should be okay at some point. We'll see. And they still need a running game. But first the answer is I think he's going to be a good NFL player.
I definitely don't think the Giants are a good fit.
No.
I'm just not interested in that happening. Is the main reason. To answer the question, like, I'm starting to get to the point where I think we've paid enough attention to the draft and studied prospects for enough years where I think ultimately the answer is how badly does he want it? Like, he's probably somewhere between Russell Wilson and Johnny Manziel. I mean, those are similar statured players with similar games as Baker Mayfield. Baker probably has the best arm of the three, if we're talking about just pure arm strength and such and such. But on the attitude scale, is he Russ or is he Johnny Manziel? I mean, not so much the drugs and all that, but does he want to be a great pro? And if he does, obviously the physical skill set is there. You know what I mean? So with the quarterback position especially, when the 2015 draft was coming up, the 2016 draft, Rock and I talked 1,000 times about, God, look at Carson Wentz on all these shows. I mean, when he's on the board, he cares. He gets it. He studies. And look, he's really good. He's really, really, really good. And then you get guys up there that are stuttering through it, and they aren't sure what their favorite play was in college, and they aren't sure of this. They were just better than everybody. That never works. That guy doesn't work. Like Deshaun Watson, physical skill set as far as his arm, not great. But he cared a ton, and he studied hard, and he came in and lit the league up till his knee blew up. So where is Baker Mayfield on that caring scale? I don't pretend to know one way or the other. I hope he cares a ton because he's fun to watch.
Yeah.
And I definitely hope the Giants are not a good fit.
I'm saying they are.
Because I don't want it to work if he's a Giant at all.
If I'm Baker Mayfield, I hope that I go maybe back up Tom Brady for a year and play in that kind of organization where someone can teach me how to be an adult. That's what I hope. Because if he goes someplace like that, and I'm not saying that he can thrive for them.
Right. I hear what you're saying.
he needs to be. He cannot go to Dallas. Not that they need a quarterback, but he can't go to Dallas. He can't go to Cincinnati.
They do.
He can't go. You know what I mean? Like he has to go someplace where someone is going to mentor him. And I don't even mean like a quarterback ahead of him. I just mean like he seems to me. I watch a lot of college football. To me, he seems slightly immature. Now he plays he plays with a chip on his shoulder like Russ did, but not just because of his height, but because he got no Division I scholarship offers. He walked on to Texas Tech. He walked on in Oklahoma. But sometimes playing with that chip on your shoulder is not necessarily a good thing because you don't know how to take the chip off your shoulder. You know what I mean? Like it's always there, and then you're always, kind of playing with that cocky attitude. Well, look at me, look what I did. And that's kind of what I see from him. But then again, dude's 22 years old, 23 years old. Like, thank God nobody judges me based on, well, at least the four of you don't judge me on how I was when I was 23 years old. Because we wouldn't still be friends, all right?
So we aren't now, but
thanks, man. Appreciate it.
I actually just mid-conversation, I think the best fit for me is the Chargers. Phillip Rivers plays with that same fire. Yep. And yeah, listen, Baker Mayfield, some of his antics are obviously immature. Like you said, he's a young kid. That's going to happen. But don't go to a team like I know Eli's gone, but if he goes and backs up Eli's an awesome mentor, and Eli knows everything there is to know about quarterback in the NFL. But they're so different personality-wise that I don't think there's a ton that Baker is going to use from Eli. But when you look at Phillip Rivers and the way he's insane and taunting the other teams and going nuts, I feel like that's the type of veteran leader that Baker Mayfield's going to buy into.
Yeah, that's exactly what
they might be a great fit.
It's exactly what I had written down here because, number one, you don't have to come in next year and play right away.
Right.
You've got a little bit of time to kind of learn a system, whereas at Oklahoma, you're really being catered to. You're going to have to come in and learn an NFL system, which is probably the only little bit of a hiccup that I really could see with Baker Mayfield. Like Rocco said it, he plays with a massive chip on his shoulder. And everything that I have seen from him from day one of seeing him, especially at Oklahoma, is that he's extremely motivated. He doesn't let a day go by where he's not reminded about how much work it's taken to get where he is and how much work he needs to continue to do to stay where he is. So he's a little bit of a hothead. That's going to come with the age that he is. He's a young college guy. He's super competitive, super fiery. Sign me up for that. You know what I mean? I could deal with that as long as you're not like a total like arrogant jerk about it. And I don't really get the impression that he is. Like he had that slip up on the sideline. I get that. But like you also went out for a handshake at midfield with like little kids standing there as your honorary captains against Kansas, and 6 different people refused to shake your hand.
Right.
Like, come on. You know what I mean? Like, so I can give him forgiveness there. The skill set is definitely a lot different than Phillip Rivers, but he's that same fiery guy with a big arm who just wants to win. The team around him in San Diego is in place to be good for a long time. So I think it's an ideal situation. I really do. I think that, you can have him, in a second, maybe third round if you're the Chargers. And I don't know. I just think it sets up nicely.
Now, all that being said, you guys know he's going in the first round, right?
Yeah. I think he could be the chart. I think he fits perfectly where the Chargers are going to be drafted in that early 20s. Yeah.
Wow.
I feel like
the fact that he's 5'11", they're not taking him top 5. They're just not.
No, I get what you're saying there, but I also feel like there's going to be a run in the top half of this draft for some quarterbacks, and then there's going to be kind of like a falling out to day 2. I mean, that's my early analysis of it. We don't need to get super far into that at this point, but I do think that he could sneak into day 2. So I don't know. That's just my opinion on it, but we got to wrap up. So because
I think the Jets are going to take him at 10. And I honestly, I don't want them to. I mean,
let's wrap it up.
Yeah, they're not going to have to do that at 10. If they do that at 10, they're going to pass on other quarterbacks. So,
okay. that'll be for a later conversation.
That's definitely it for this week's edition of the podcast. Good luck to those of you still alive in the playoffs. Be sure to stay tuned to footballgoons.com all the rest of this week. We got the power rankings that are up there. Podcast is going to be dropping as well. And then on Thursday, we're going to hit you with our goons, our ghosts, and our daily fantasy picks for week 15. Obviously, you don't want to miss those, especially if you're playing daily fantasy. We want to give you some really good value picks that you could use in your lineups this weekend and try and make some extra Christmas cabbage, if you know what I'm talking about. So stay tuned there. We are at Football Goons on the Twitter, facebook.com/Football Goons. Those are the two best places on social media to keep up with us, to hit us up with your questions, your comments, your concerns about what jersey Rocco is going to wear next week. Whatever you want to ask us, we will field your questions there and we will talk back with you because we love the Goon Squad. And right here on our YouTube channel, you can always like our content, subscribe to it, leave comments on it as well there on YouTube. We'll catch you guys next time.